Welcome back to Boomer's Playground, and today we're going to go over nested loops. This is a pretty interesting topic because it does get asked a lot on the different programming discords or Stack Overflow or even I would imagine in job interviews. But in reality, you're likely never going to loop over something twice or like do a loop within a loop. It's considered bad practice. So if you don't know what big O notation is, it's something that you traditionally learn in like a college course or more like computer sciencey type things. And big O notation is just how long, what's the quickest time something could take to get done. And the reason I even bring this up is when you have a for loop within another for loop, the big O notation is I think it's the actual notation that it is irrelevant. The point is, if you do a loop within a loop, you are doubling the best case scenario of how long it could take something to run. So that's why it's kind of like frowned upon. And honestly, I feel like if you need to do a loop within a loop, the data you're getting from whatever service or API or a database, I feel like that should be the thing that's adjusted, not you on the front end. So let's just get into it. All right, so we got this. Let me grab a drink here. All right, so nested for loops, kind of weird, but we'll just do arrays of arrays. And we'll just do, what do I want to do here? I probably should have thought this through on what this video was going to be, but I try to make these videos just off the cuff. That way, I don't know, it's more real, right? You guys are seeing me stumble. You guys are seeing me have issues thinking about this stuff just to show that, like, hey, man, that's okay. Like, that's the world we live in. I just passed my 4 years at my job as a developer, and I still get stuck up on this stuff. So I don't want you guys to come to my videos and be like, oh my God, like, this guy just gets it. Because the truth is, none of us just get it. And this is even something I kind of have been going over myself, just because this is the year that the company that I work for is either going to succeed or we're going to fail, and I'm going to have to start looking for another job possibly. And so, like, all the people I follow on YouTube, everything they do is just perfect, right? They just always know. They know the solution to it. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, I'm not going to get another job. And then, I interviewed at a couple places and yeah, it's totally fine. But I just want you guys to see that even with experience, like, the stuff isn't always second nature. So, okay, so we have an array of arrays. And so if you guys have watched any of my other videos or if you've gone through any of the JavaScript courses, we know that arrays start at zero. They're zero index. So A of 0 is going to give us that first array. A of 1 is going to give us a second, so on and so forth. And so in this instance, I'm thinking like, okay, like if this is the data I get back from an API, I'm going to the API documentation, I'm going to my backend team and I'm saying, hey, what the hell? Like, what else could I query to make this not an array of arrays? But let's just pretend, this is just how it has to be. So, we can just go over, we'll just do a regular array, I is less than i.length, plus, and then let's just see what this gives us. And so we can do console.log a of I, and then what? Oh, because wow. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I don't want to pre-record and edit these, because these are the dumb mistakes that people make all the time. Like, I make 6 figures. I've been working for 4 years and I still made that mistake. Like, come on, dude. All right, so here. Okay, cool. So this is kind of what we were expecting, right? Or this is what I was expecting. I hope this is what you guys were expecting, is we're just looping over, and each array within our main array is its own thing. So we're like, okay, cool. Well, I need to go through and I need to, I don't count how many even numbers, or I don't, just make up some random thing that we need to do. Again, you rarely will do, you just don't do nested for loops. They're just not popular, and a lot of times they're just not necessary. But in this instance, this we're getting from our backend team. They're off on vacation. They say it's going to be a month to fix it. We just have to deal with it. Cool. So for loops are tough to wrap your head around until you really just stop and think about it. And I had many problems with these when I was first learning. So, all right, so we have a.length. We'll do this. So here's our main loop. Now what we need to do is we want to do another loop because we want to get access to each of these numbers or strings or whatever they are. It doesn't really matter. We want to get access to those. So in this first loop, we're going to get these things. And then what we can do is we can actually do another loop. And we do J. And then I think we want to do dot length. And this is probably where it gets a little confusing at first because you're like, oh, what the heck did he just do? So we're going over our first loop, and we know we only want to go as far as our A array is long. But we also have to take that into consideration on the inner loop, right? We don't want to go past how many items we have. So what we can do is A of I is actually going to be each of these things. And then we do the length of that, so we know that we'll never go to a fourth index or a fifth index or whatever it is. So we're starting, so we have I of 0, while I is less than, the total array length, and then, add 1. Then we have the inner loop, which is, okay, we got to create a new variable. We can't use I. So we're using J. And then we want to go, as long as J is less than, again, the length of the array we're currently looping over. So what you have to think about here is we're going to do this first for loop, which is going to be, in the first instance, 0, 1, 2, 3. And then our inside loop is actually going to be each item in that array. And so we're going to go through, so this first for loop happens, we get the first array, then the second for loop happens, and we go over this second for loop until we finish this entire array. So we're going to go through, we'll get 0, we'll get 1, we'll get 2, we'll get 3. Then this inner for loop is done. We'll jump back up here. I will get incremented by 1. I will be 1. We'll now get this second array. And then in the inner loop again, it's going to do the same thing. We're going to loop over every item in this array. We're not going to move on until we're done with this inner loop. So we'll do 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's just do this. We'll do outer loop. And a lot of times this is how sorry guys. This is how I like to structure things so I can kind of see in what order things are running. There are a lot of, there's like a debugger tool built into the console. That works pretty good. But at the beginning, and I'll be honest, even today, I use it a little bit, but I don't seem to get as much value out of that as I do just console logging. All right, so we got that, and we'll just do I have A, and then here, we'll just console log, and we'll do inner. And sync, so we're doing that, I think J should just be the thing. So let's see what we get here. Okay, cool. So, okay, perfect, yeah. So we get, oh, right. I have A. Oh, because J is just 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we actually need to do, oh man. Okay. I get why people get confused by these now. All right, so we actually have to do A of I of J. And so, yeah, so the reason for this is, okay, so we'll just run this. And then we get 0, 1, 2, 3. So the first loop, we get this array. Then we go into our second loop, and we actually loop over every item in this array. And then that happens again, again, again. And so the big thing here is we have A, which is an array of arrays, right? So if we do A of 0, which will be the first run through this outside loop, we get this 0, 1, 2, 3. Well, how do you get access to any of those items in that inner array is you have to do, whatever index or whatever item we want. It just happens to be 2 there. And then I guess 3 would be 3 and so forth, and 1. So that's where I can see this getting very confusing, right? So we have this outer loop, we're going to loop over. Then we have this inner loop, which again, we're going to loop over the inner arrays. So we're getting the first loop, we're getting this 0th index, which is another array, and then we're looping over each item in that array. And then the same for the second, same for the third, same for the fourth, and as long as you want to go. Again, I can't think of any time that I've had to do this at work. And again, you shouldn't be getting data structured like this. But again, let's just play devil's advocate. This will get asked. This does show your understanding of the language. But it's just not super common. So, all right. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's really, I'm trying to think of anything else that's kind of tricky. And it's really not, nothing is really tricky. You just really have to stop, slow down, and really, really think about it. So, and actually, let's do one thing here. So the way this works is we'll do I, and then we'll do J, just so you guys can see what those numbers are. And so you'll see through this, I think the biggest confusion is this inner loop runs through its entire process before we break out and we increase this I value. So you'll see I is 0, I is 0, I is 0, I is 0. And then once we finish that first inner array, then we increment I by 1. But again, it's 1, it's 1, it's 1, it's 1. And then same with the third time. We increment I to 2. Well, 2 stays the same because we're running this inner for loop every single time we can until the length of that array is done. And I think that's the big confusion for a lot of people. And so this is where the console log really helps me kind of think about these things and figure these things out. So I don't really know anything else to say about this. If you guys have specific questions, please ask them in the comment section below. I'm no longer on the Colt Steel Discord. But if you guys ask me questions in the comment section, if they're good questions or if they're questions that I was like, oh, wow, how did I miss that? I'll definitely either add on to these videos or I'll start doing shorts on them. But I think the next thing is going to be, I'm going to start going over some Code Wars challenges. Because that's a big part that a lot of people don't jump into because they don't think it's important. And it's really, really a different way of thinking about things. So you go through a course, we'll say the Odin Project or Colt Steel's course or any other, good instructor on Udemy, you're never solving problems like you do with a code challenge. He's teaching you this, and then you're building, he's teaching you X, you're building Y. But you're never really having to think on your own. And that's probably the biggest hurdle and the biggest thing that keeps people from getting their first job, because they'll do a course, they may even build some projects, and then they'll go into the interview. And I've noticed this, we have 2 questions. We ask a very simple one, which if you can't answer, you don't understand the core language. And then we ask another one that we'd like you to answer. But if it's for a junior role, it's we kind of get it as long as your thought process is correct. But we see so many people that are just huh? They don't know how to process that problem. So I think I'm going to jump into those next. I do think they're way more important than people think they are. And it's less from a data structure. Leak code is really, really tough. God, I actually haven't even done any of those. I should do some of those and see how bad I am. Maybe that'll be one of the first videos. I'll do one of those and show you guys how awful I am at problem solving that stuff. But nonetheless, this was nested for loops. I really wanted to make this more in detail, but it's basic enough that it doesn't require a long video. It's really just the stop, slow down, think through the process. That's, I think, the biggest thing about this. And it is a little confusing because, you're inside of, something else. So, yeah, this is really the only thing I could think of to loop over a couple times. Like I said, I've never had to do this at work. If I did get data like this, I would go to the team that was giving me that data and to be like, hey, like, how can I get this in a flat array or an array of objects or an array of something that I could loop over a singular time? So I hope you guys learned something. This one did not go as deep as I expected it to, but nonetheless, if you guys have specific questions, leave them in the comment section below. Again, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.